Hey guys, welcome back to Meme Coin Madness. This is part two of the trading competition kind of walkthrough, I guess you can call it. I was going to say starting Monday, November 25th. I realize now that's in about a little less than 12 hours or so. So it's getting very exciting for us. I'm here with Primal Glenn, contributor at, I don't know if I should say Primal Glenn or Glenn, contributor at Bancor and Carbon DeFi, along with Crypto Hunter. Say enthusiast, I don't know, advocate. I'll leave it at enthusiast, right? The previous call, we never really clarified. I don't know if it's necessary, but the previous call we talked about Carbon DeFi, limit, range, and recurring orders, along with obviously Meme Coin Madness and how to generate this volume, and to how to participate in the competition. This part two, we're going to kind of look at concentrated liquidity from its very beginning. I know, Glenn, we have your screen up here on this, showing for all of our viewers, showing the difference between Carbon DeFi and existing AMMs. Maybe you can kind of start here, and Crypto Hunter, please, the same way that you did the last time, and don't apologize for it. Just stop us and ask any questions or add any comments that you really want, us to bring clarity to.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Right. Thank you again, both of you guys, for joining.
Good. I guess, we can get started. Thank you for hosting this Twitter space. It's always a pleasure to be here. And today we're going to talk about concentrated liquidity. Essentially, we were looking at a demo last time, and I don't think we actually we didn't go into too many details, right? Because we were over time, and then obviously we wanted to keep the stream short. I think we did about an hour and 30 minutes. But yeah, so this diagram here essentially shows you the current, I guess, types of liquidity provisioning that you could do, or at least the most popular ones, right? So constant product, this is your Uniswap V2, right? SushiSwap, etc., plus other like Uniswap V2 forks. So what this is showing you here, it's a price chart, right? And this price chart is, I'm not sure which token pair this is, but you can see that this thing has candles, right? Some green candles where price goes up, and then some red candles where price goes down, right? So you can see the price history of this token pair. What's important here is if you're providing liquidity for this actual token pair, right? Your liquidity, it's being provided across the entire price spectrum. So if you go all the way down here on the y-axis, let's just say that's like 0, and you go all the way up on the y-axis, that's like some large amount, some large number, infinity. Let's just call it that, right? So your liquidity gets distributed across the entire price spectrum, so that meaning anytime someone is looking to buy or sell, right, they can use the liquidity that you're making available for that trading pair. Right, this is what we're saying when we are talking about constant product liquidity, right? You're distributing that liquidity from 0 to infinity, and then anyone can use that liquidity to buy or sell into, right? So this is your typical DEXs, right? Back in the day, this was like the X times Y equals K formula, right? Now, what ended up happening was we figured that, okay, there is certain price points where that liquidity is being distributed into, where the market, frankly, it's just never gonna reach those price points, right? So essentially, you might decide, okay, you are wasting a bunch of liquidity, providing it at certain price points where that token or that trading pair will never reach. Is there a way for us to make that liquidity provisioning more efficient, right? So this is where this idea of concentrated liquidity came into play. Can you potentially provide liquidity around the current price of the token or around the current market price of that token, right? Such that you are essentially concentrating that liquidity and making it available for anyone to utilize. And this also means that people that are buying or selling into that liquidity all of a sudden have a lot more liquidity available, which means that if they're swapping large amounts of token, then this could mean that they're not going to see a potential high price impact, right? So this is where this idea came up. So you can sort of see same chart as before, the example of concentrated liquidity we're concentrating that liquidity between a certain range here, right? So it's no longer covering the entire price chart. It's only covering a portion of that price chart, right? So if the price, for example, of that token goes outside of the place where you're providing liquidity, then this typically means that you're no longer earning quote unquote trading fees because your liquidity is not being utilized. You're out of range all of a sudden, right? So what ends up happening in this model is that when you're out of range, you're no longer earning trading fees. So you have to essentially like rebalance your position. What this means is that when you're out of range, you're going to be 100% in either of the tokens of that trading pair. You might have to sell a portion of those tokens and provide liquidity in range again, right? So this is the idea behind concentrated liquidity, where you can be more efficient by only providing liquidity across price points where that token tends to trade most of the time. So this might be like some channel in a price chart that you have identified. Okay.
Please,
So
sorry, Glenn. Sorry, I'll have to cut you just a minute because I want to clarify something. Okay, so when you are of range, let's say you were on a pair of say and USDC, okay, then you are of range, and then everything moves to USDC or everything moves back to say 100%. How is it determined which side it goes to?
how is it determined? So this is determined by essentially the price, I guess the external market price of that token, right? If that token goes down in value, let's say if Sei goes down in value, what's going to happen is you're going to be essentially selling off the USDC for acquiring the Sei, which is going down in value, right? So you're always going to essentially acquire the token that goes down in value in either concentrated liquidity or constant product liquidity. And it's the same thing in the opposite direction, right? If a token is going up in value, then that is the token that you're selling off, right? And then you're always going to be acquiring the underperforming token. So if Sei does extremely well, right, and it goes up to like $100, and you're providing liquidity between like 50 cents and like $2, right? At that point in time, you're going to be left with 0 Sei tokens, and you're going to be 100% in USDC, right? Now, if the market retraces and it slowly starts dropping again, let's say it goes from 100 all the way down to $2 and then $1.50, then what you're going to do is you're going to start buying, say, from the market with the USDC that you've provided as concentrated liquidity. So this happens automatically for you, right? There's typically arbitrageurs, people that are doing on-chain searchers, people that are doing MEP, right, that are equilibrating pools across different dexes. They will essentially give you the Sei and take the USDC in this liquidity pool, right, in this USDC Sei trading pair. So this happens automatically. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So just a little one quickly too. Anything like losses when that happens?
Yeah, I mean, like it depends. It depends, like I guess, how long you've been in that position, right? And how many fees you've earned, right? There's like dexes, for example, like the prototypical example, they have fee tiers, right? And fee tiers, they tend to be at 1 basis point, 5 basis point, 30 basis points, or 100 basis points, right? For example, if your liquidity was in range for a very long period of time, right? And then you went out of range, and then let's say it went back in range. Well, you went back in range, you might have made probably a large chunk of fees for that portion of time where you were in range, such that you might have a positive ROI. But the opposite could have happened as well. Let's say you were in range maybe for like an entire year, and then all of a sudden, say went to like $100, right? And you were 100% in USDC. At that point, let's say you decided to withdraw, and then all of a sudden you're doing the calculations on your end, and you are looking at, okay, this is how much liquidity I provided initially, plus the fees that I've earned. And now I'm actually calculating, well, if I didn't provide that liquidity, if I held on to my Sei, right, and I were to sell it at the current price, which is $100, how much I would have made, right? If that difference, right, is greater, then that means that you would have been better off not providing liquidity, right? So that situation entirely depends on like the individual, right? And how long they've been providing liquidity for, when they started providing liquidity, when they started to withdraw that liquidity, how many fees they've earned, fee tiers, all these things are factors that need to be taken into account. But something that, if you're providing liquidity, you might want to like potentially just keep track of, right? Just so you can figure out, right, what your ROI has been over this time period.
Okay, that sounds nice. In essence, is that the concept of independent laws, like not a laws actually?
Crypto Hunter, you're cutting out a little bit, but I think you were saying is that like a result of impermanent loss or impermanent loss itself?
Yeah, so
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, exactly. Is that the concept of impermanent loss? That's correct.
Yeah, it's essentially your HODL position versus what you perceived at the end when you decided to withdraw, right? So impermanent loss, it's only impermanent until you decide to withdraw, and then it becomes permanent, right? You can also have impermanent gains, right? And then obviously once you withdraw, those gains can become permanent. So it goes, I guess, in both directions, right? So when you're trying to provide liquidity, these are things that you should look out for. Obviously, certain projects or protocols, they might try to offset some of the loss that you're going to be experiencing by providing you maybe tokens as rewards, right? That's also something to look into, right? But typically in this model where it's a constant product, this tends to be a model where LPs lose most of the time, right? Or the vast majority of the time. It's actually an option that Carbon can actually, you can actually do a constant product liquidity on Carbon, but we don't offer that option in the UI for the reason that we know the vast majority of LPs in constant product pools, actually, they don't make out too well, right? So this option is not available, right? Carbon offers the concentrated liquidity option with a few caveats, which make it better. And then we also offer the option of asymmetric liquidity, which is the buy low, sell high. And what that looks like is exactly this. Instead of buying and selling everywhere across this range, you defined, I want to buy down here, and then I want to sell up here, such that as the price chart of this token is down here, you're buying. When it goes up here, you're selling, right? Eventually it goes down here again, you're buying, you sell again, right? You buy again, you sell, right? And this gap here in the middle, you see this black gap, this is essentially the spread, right? This is what you're capturing. Every time there's a buy low, sell high cycle, this gap is what you're capturing as your profits, right? Mm-hmm. This is the concept of Carbon's asymmetric liquidity. We can do these buy low, sell high strategies, and we can also give you the ability to do concentrated liquidity. And there's a reason why you might want to do actually one of these, or you might actually want to do both, which is what we see with most, I would say, like sophisticated traders. And the way this would work is essentially you might identify a channel where a token pair tends to trade most of the time. And that channel is essentially your concentrated liquidity position, because the token happens to be in that channel for the vast majority of its time, which means that as it's trading within that channel, you're earning quote unquote fees, or as we like to call it, the spread, right? And then obviously when that token goes out of range, right, and it's no longer in your concentrated liquidity channel, what ends up happening is you have a Carbon asymmetric liquidity, or as we call it, a recurring order in the protocol, right, that buy lows and sell high. So outside of that channel, you're either buying or selling, right? And essentially this lets you capture the volatility of that token, right? When there's like a volatility that in the market that happens with this token, right, and you're out of range, well, now you're good because your other strategy all of a sudden becomes alive. And that is either buying low or selling high. This is how you can use both of these things together, right? It's a useful feature to have. This is useful, for example, for peg assets, right? A peg asset is it's a token that has that's tied to an underlying token. So, for example, like a liquid staking token, might be an example of this, right? You might provide liquidity for an LST and its underlying token, concentrated liquidity around like the Unity price, right? And then obviously if a certain depeg happens for this token on the downside, you're going to be buying it at a low price with a recurring strategy. And then once it returns back to the peg, you can sell it either 1-to-1, if not higher. So now you're selling it at a higher price point. This is the buy low, sell high. But most of the time, you're providing liquidity at the price of Unity, and that means that you're earning trading fees, right? This is where having these two type of strategies are quite useful, right? And like I said, like most professional traders, this is what they end up doing.
Makes a lot of sense to me, Glenn. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Okay.
Right. Great. So I'm going to go ahead. I've stopped sharing my screen or the previous slide. I'm actually back into the Carbon simulator, right? Just to show you what this looks like from our side, right? So this is the Seiyan trading pair, right? You can see that I've selected the past 3 months, right? I have two ranges here, one for buying and one is for selling, right? I can obviously place these anywhere.
Sorry, Glenn. Sorry, please, for the sake of the audience. When you say you selected the last 3 months, can you demonstrate? I know exactly it's way down there, but some people might not know exactly what you're referring to.
For sure. So down here, you have these selections, right? You can do 7 days, you can do 1 month, or you can do like 3 months, right? Or even like a longer time period if we have the pricing data, right? Some tokens might not have pricing data to go that far, so we'll always show you by default it will be the longer pricing data that we can show you, right? And then you can always like restrict this down to a certain time frame or time period, right? So as I was showing you in my example, so
let's stay there. Sorry, I would have to interrupt you in many places of the different time frames. Like if I stay on the 7 days period 1 week, or I choose to do 1 month, or I choose to do a longer range, like what's the difference? Do I want to see the history of trading between this point in time, and what's the benefit of doing so?
Yeah, so I guess the difference here is the chart data and the pricing data for the token. So the longer time frame might give you like an idea of what this token pair has done over a long time period, right? But also this is useful because this is the data that we end up using for backtesting the trading strategy, right? So this is the simulate side of Carbon DeFi. Right. So if you choose 3 months here, this means that we're going to backtest the strategy using 3 months of data. If you were to go to 1 month, then we would backtest using 1 month of data. So yeah, this is here essentially just to like help you try to pick a good range to like buy low and sell high, and also a good range to provide concentrated liquidity into, right? Because here you can see potentially, right, you might realize, okay, 3 months, let me do 3 months here, right? This channel here, it looks like it's been in this channel for quite a while, right? So if we were to look at concentrated liquidity, this is what concentrated liquidity is, right? This is my sell high range on Carbon, right? I might expand this sell high range here, and concentrated liquidity is saying, I want to buy and sell here. So your sell range is here, and then your buy range also goes in here, right? And where they overlap, right? This overlap portion is your concentrated liquidity position, and you can see on the edges there's like non-overlapping portions, right? These non-overlapping portions, they essentially end up becoming the spread or fee that you will be setting in your concentrated liquidity position. Right, so this is just another way to visualize what a concentrated liquidity strategy is. It's essentially taking your buy range and your sell range and putting them together, right? So if you put these like right on top of each other, like I've done here, right? This is a concentrated liquidity position where you're not charging any fees or spread. And this might be useful if you just if you're like a market maker and then you're trying to like generate volume for the token, provide liquidity for that token pair, right? And you might not care about earning any fees because the project might be compensating you somehow, right? Your goal is strictly to provide liquidity for this token on chain, right? If you are a liquidity provider, you might want to spread these apart, right? Such that as you spread these apart, right, you have a higher spread or a higher fee, right? And then obviously the more spread out they are, right, the higher that is. And then at some point in time, you end up with a buy low, sell high strategy where this gap here, there's no liquidity here anymore, right? You're buying down here and selling up here, right? So that's another way to visualize a concentrated liquidity strategy on Carbon. It's just taking your buy range and your sell range and overlapping them together, right? And this is what we do for concentrated liquidity on Carbon. Is that clear, Crypto Hunter? Any questions you might have there?
Yeah, I'm perfectly clear with you on that. Yeah.
Good. So that this is like the recurring side. I'll show you what this looks like on the concentrated side, right? On the concentrated liquidity position side, right? You can see where the higher the spread here, right? You can see like how it doesn't overlap as much anymore, right? Like you can see these dotted lines, how they become spread out farther apart, right? This is 1, right? This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the edges, they get bigger, right? So for like the Seiyan and Sei trading pair, this is part of the trading competition, right? The goal would be to provide liquidity close to the current market price. This white line here, this is the this white square is the current price
The market
of
price,
Seiyan denominated in Sei, right? This is what we're pulling, right? And one of the things that we can do on Carbon is we can have a very low spread. So typically on other concentrated liquidity solutions, the lowest that they tend to go to is 1 basis point. On Carbon, you can potentially go to 1/10 of a basis point. So something like this, right? Perfectly fine, right? If your goal is strictly to generate volume, the lower fee will help you, right? Or you might say, you know what, this is actually quite a volatile trading pair. Like you can see what it has done over the past few days. It just goes up and down within this like channel. You might decide I'm actually perfectly fine with 1% fee on this trading pair because it's quite volatile, right? And you know, I think that would be good because I am also earning some of those fees by providing liquidity in a volatile trading pair, right? You can do that as well. So you have the ability here to choose your fee or your spread. You can always set this, right? This is something that we have on Carbon, right? And this is something that does not exist on other concentrated liquidity dexes or your prototypical concentrated liquidity dexes, right? The other thing that we do here is we essentially, let me back test this actually. So this is a simulator. We're going to back test this with 100, say, actually let me do 20. I might not have 100. So we're going to do 1%. This range here, right? I'm actually going to make this a bit wider, right? And let's just see how that would have done. So this is the past 3 months or so, right? We started with 20 Sei, right? 0 Seiyan. And essentially, this strategy would have had an ROI of 6.85 Sei, which is 34% or so. Right?
Wow, how many weeks spread is that?
How many weeks you said?
Yeah, like what do you back?
Yeah, so this started looks like around May, somewhere like May 30th, it looks like.
About 6 months, 35% ROI, or 34% ROI in 6 months.
Right. Okay. And this is where your final token balance is, right? You would have had 390 Seiyan, 16 Sei, right? And you can see the performance here. So when you started, you were at 0% ROI, and at certain points in this in this time period, you actually had a negative ROI. So like in this around July 10th, right? If you were to withdraw that liquidity, you would have had a negative ROI, which means you would have been better off hodling that liquidity as opposed to doing a concentrated liquidity position, right? But as time went on, you can see, okay, it recovered, went down, it recovered, went down, recovered, right? And then it went down again, recovered a little bit, went down, right? Seiyan really did well here, right? It shot up in price. So, or I think I should say, right? And then eventually things got back to normal. You recovered, and then all of a sudden your RI was positive, right? Eventually you were negative again, but then you were positive, positive, negative, or zero, breaking even, positive, breaking even, positive, breaking even, and now you're back in the positive. If you were to withdraw this today, this is your ROI denominated in Sei, right? Sei is the denominating token in this trading pair. And we show you a summary here. Essentially, I'm going to show you the huddle position, right? Get rid of this, get rid of this. This is what we care. This is the huddle value in orange, and the portfolio value denominated in Sei, how it did over that time period. So at the end of this time period, your portfolio value would have been up here, and that difference here is your ROI, right? So what I can do from here is, okay, I like this actual, I actually like these ranges that I selected. I want to go ahead and create a strategy, right? And here, I'm going to set my fee. I did 1%, right? I selected this range here, right? It looks like that's roughly 20% below the current market price, 16% above, right? So I'm going to make these just round numbers. I like round numbers instead of having all these decimal places here.
So basically, sorry, just chipping in there, that means that you're trying to provide liquidity between current price, and even if price goes as high as 20% above the current price, or it goes like 16% below. Is that correct?
Yeah, you are in here. I'm providing liquidity between 0.021, which is over here on the left, all the way up to 0.032, all the way here on the right. This is
yeah. So what I'm trying to ask is, sorry,
Yeah.
Glenn. So what I'm trying to ask is that in essence, are you saying you're trying to provide liquidity between, even if price goes as high as 20% from current price, or as low as 16% from current price, you'll still be earning 1% fee? That's you wouldn't go out of range. I just want to get it straight.
So I modified the number, so it's 21% below, 19% above. So this is the liquidity you're providing within this range from current market price. If it goes above, if the price goes 20% above, then you are out of range at that point in time. So your liquidity will no longer get utilized. Correct.
So a quick one. Supposing I select let's say 5% below, 5% above. So what's the difference between making it quite tight, like 5%, and keeping it as free as 20 to 30%?
What's the difference? So in one scenario, right, you're providing liquidity +5 below 5. This is a lot more concentrated than the liquidity that I'm providing across in this example, which is minus 20% above 20%, right? So let's say if you were providing $100, right, $100 worth of liquidity, and let's say you're providing liquidity from 0 to 100, right? Roughly, in every $1 price point, you have $1 worth of liquidity. But now, let's say you're providing liquidity between $0 and $50, and you're still essentially providing $100 worth of liquidity. Well, all of a sudden now, in every $1 price change, you have roughly $2 worth of liquidity, right? And it's the same thing, right? If you had, for example, if you're providing liquidity between $0 and $25, and you have $100 worth of liquidity, then in every $1 price difference, you have $4 worth of liquidity. So the lower or the tighter the concentration, the more liquidity that's available at those price points. The wider the liquidity provision that you're providing, the less liquidity that is available in those price points. So what you can do is, if you provide like a wide range, right, you could potentially provide higher amount of liquidity in order to have more liquidity available within that range, right? Or
Okay.
alternatively, yeah, you can always
Okay.
concentrate that
Finish up.
liquidity.
Finish up. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll ask.
good.
Alternatively, just finish up and then I'll ask what I want to
No,
ask.
no, I'm good. You can
Okay.
ask.
Okay. So what we're trying to say is, instead of keeping the range is quite tight, I could now provide more volume, if I could put it that way. Okay. So for example, I was trying to play around $100 at the range of, let's say, 7% or maybe 10% up, and then 10% price down. So instead of doing that, I could now rather say, okay, I make $300 and then extend it to like 30% boot range. I don't know if you get the concept I'm trying to put out.
No, I didn't understand your question.
Okay, I
Sorry.
ask again. Okay, so for example, let's say I have $100 to provide as liquidity. Okay, I have
Sure.
$100, and
Mhm.
then I decide to, because as according to what we were seeing, the concepts here, the tighter the range,
Yeah.
the more you make. That's correct.
Correct. So the tighter the range, the higher the possibility of you making higher fees,
Exactly.
because it's gonna be utilized. But you run into the risk of, let's say, if you provide a
Going
tight
out of
range, like
range.
you're saying, going out of range, right? So that is always
Exactly.
a concern. So if you provide wider liquidity, then the possibility of going out of range is less likely, right? But
Exactly.
also,
So
because you're not concentrating too much liquidity around the current market price, it's distributed more widely, right? That also means you're not going to be earning as many fees either, right? So
okay.
something to keep in mind, right? You have to find a balance here, right? So you might decide, you know what, maybe I don't have too much funds available. I'm going to provide liquidity concentrated around the current market price, maybe up 5, down 5. Or you might say, okay, well, I want a wider range, maybe up 10, down 10, but actually I'm going to be able to put a little bit more funds. Maybe instead of doing like $100, I have maybe like $500. So you're providing a larger quantity of capital across a wider range. So it might be the equivalent of providing a lower amount of capital at a more concentrated range, right? So this is like what you might want to do, but also you can do two concentrated liquidity strategies on Carbon, right? You can have, for example, you can split your funds. You might say, you know what, I think this token pair, it's going to trade in this very tight range for the majority of the time. So I'm going to provide maybe 60% of my liquidity in this tight range. And then the other 40%, I'm going to make available across like a wider range, right? So this way, you're sort of also hedging to a certain extent, right? You are essentially have some backup liquidity such that when you're concentrated, your super concentrated liquidity position, it's no longer it's out of range. Then your wider concentrated liquidity position is still in range, right? So you can also do this,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, I get you. So I always like to, get this analogy of this trading, exactly how it works on PepDex. Okay. So I'm just bringing it for instance now. Okay. So let's say I have $50 and I want to trade with 2x leverage. So a good range and not out of, really not in danger, compared to the other guy who feels, okay, instead of making 2x, let him rather make 20x. And then he reduces the $50 to maybe 5. So the more leverage you have, the more chances of getting liquidated. Okay. Then the lesser the leverage, you rather prefer less leverage, and then you have more margin to in order to stay safe. Does that make sense? Is that the kind
Yeah.
of
So
concept?
yeah, I guess you can say something like that, right? The less leverage you take, the less chances of getting liquidated. The higher leverage you take, the higher chances of getting liquidated, but also you have a higher chance of making more money as well, right? So it's
Mhm.
always a balance between these two things. To be clear on Carbon, right? Carbon, it's a spot trading protocol, right? We do not take you,
Yeah.
do not let you take on leverage, right? So just keep that in mind. But yeah, you can sort of think of it as this might be like a good way to think about, right? Like, what is your risk for appetite, essentially, right?
Perfect. That's cool.
So yeah, I'll
Absolutely.
continue with this example, right? We chose this range, down 20, roughly down 20, up 20 from current market price, 1% fee tier, right? I have like 40, looks like 40 say in this wallet. I'm gonna do 20 like I did in my example, and it's telling me I'm gonna need 587 Seiyan to provide.
Sorry,
Looks like
Glenn.
this.
Sorry, Glenn. Sorry. Absolutely.
Crypto Hunter, you're cutting out. Are you there? Glenn, is it just me on my side?
He's cutting out for me as well. I cannot hear what he's saying, but I think he's cutting out as well.
Is it better
Now
now?
you're back.
You're back.
Okay. Yeah, okay, sorry. So you were putting 1% fee. Supposing I want to make 5% fee. Supposing the other guy wants to make 0%, 0.5. So what's the difference between these ranges on fees?
Yeah, so the difference here essentially is when you have a concentrated liquidity position, right? This means that essentially you have an overlapping buy order and a sell order. So the higher the fee here, the less of an overlap you have, right? So when I was showing you the simulator, right? Let me go back to the simulator because it's easier to actually view it there, right? If we do concentrated here, right? And we select, for example, a range like this, right? You can see my range that I've selected, the current market price here, it's in this white square, right? Look what happens here on the edges when I have a higher fee, right? Let's start with 1 basis point, right? It's almost like this buy and sell order are on top of each other. As you have a higher fee, you can see that the edges, they no longer overlap, right? 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, etc. Right? So the higher the fee, essentially the less of an overlap. So what this means essentially is, let's say, Seiyan and say trading pair, right? You're willing to provide liquidity in a range, right, where anyone can come and use that liquidity for buying or selling into. As a liquidity provider, what you're telling the market is, okay, as the price of this token is going up, I am willing to sell it, right? But there might be a certain price point where, okay, I'm gonna be willing to sell and sell and sell, right? And then at a certain price point, I'm not gonna be willing to buy it back from you, right? This means that you can no longer sell it back into me at the same price point, right? That I sold it, right? So for example, let's say you're selling a token at $1, right? And then you have, your fee is like one basis point, right? So you might tell the market, okay, I am willing to sell this token at $1, but I'm only going to be willing to buy it back at 99 cents, right? So that is a 1 basis point fee, right? Because you have a difference of a penny, right? So the higher the fee, the higher the difference between the buy order and the sell order. So if you have like a 5 basis point, you are telling the market, okay, I'm willing to sell this token, right, all the way up to $1. But when you want to sell it back into me, you want to use my liquidity to sell back into, I'm only going to buy it back at 0.95 cents on the dollar. So there's like a 5-cent difference. This 5-cent difference is the spread or the fee that I'm earning, right? So the higher the spread or the fee, right, the higher the difference between your buy and sell order, right? This is how you should think about, the fee that you're selecting. It is literally just the spread between the buy and the sell order. The higher the spread, the higher the difference between your buy and sell order, right? So when we're looking at concentrated liquidity, this is what we are specifying here, right? So if you look at this chart here, right, with like a 5% fee, or put 5%, you're willing to buy in this range, buy and sell in this range, right? And then that
looks like the less chances for you if you make the percentage higher? Kind of.
For a liquidity provider, right, with a higher fee, right, there's a possibility that, let's say, that trading pair is not volatile enough that you might not be earning enough fees. If it's a volatile trading pair, right, having a high fee or spread might make sense, right? So it depends on the trading pair that you're trading and what that price chart has done in its history, right?
Oh, yeah.
So typically speaking, like if you're trading, for example, two stable coins against each other, USDC against USDT, they tend to trade pretty much 1-to-1, 99.99% of the time, right?
Yeah.
So having a high spread in that scenario doesn't make much sense because, right, you're not going to be, for example, selling USDC for USDT at
0.5.
one and then
Exactly.
buying it back at like 95 cents of the dollar, because that typically doesn't happen, right? Like you typically don't see such high spreads in stable coins, right? So in that scenario, you might want to have a very low spread, and then what you're doing is you're hoping for having large amounts of volume so that that volume can essentially make up for the low spread that you're charging, right? The high amounts of volume with a low spread could potentially give you some good earnings, right? So this is like something to keep in mind, right? So like I what I've seen typically is like the volatile trading pairs, like crypto against like fiat backed stable coins, it tends to be quite volatile. So having high fees on those might make sense if you're trading like two meme tokens against each other. Say against, or let's say Seiyan against Gonad, right? Let's just look at this trading pair the past 3 months, right? Let me go down here. 3 months. Like you can see that this has had some volatility, right? Like if you look at this thing, right, it's volatile, right? If you look at the USDC against the USDT price chart, right, like little to none. Like if you look at this thing, it's like very little volatility. That having a 5% spread does not make sense. You might want to go to something that's very, very low.
Tight. Like
one basis point, or even like
0.0
1/10 of a basis point, right? Like look at it, right? There's no volatility here. This thing just trades 1-to-1. So having like a high spread here makes no sense, right? Even we don't even let you go above like 0.18 with this range, right? Just because it doesn't make sense, right? So so for stuff like this, you might want to say I want to trade between like 0.99 and like 1.01, right, which is still quite large. Or you might want to make this tighter, right, 0.9, right, and then make this tighter here, right? Yeah, and then all of a sudden you're actually now like in range here, right, with a low spread. And all you're doing here is like you're expecting to have a lot of volume, because this is like a trading pair that a lot of people tend to like trade, right? This is where the counter example, as opposed to like a volatile trading pair like what we were doing, like Seiyan against Say, but you can also see Seiyan against like, this is another trading pair, right? Like just look at this, right? Like volatile, right? So having a high fee here shouldn't be a problem, right? But yeah, keep in mind that the competition does measure volume. So if you want to be like a top trader in the competition that we're having with Seiyan, and you want to generate the most volume, then you also have to think about, okay, maybe having a high spread or a fee for the trading competition is probably not ideal, because the goal is to generate volume. So maybe I'm actually going to do a lower fee or spread, right? Because my goal is to generate the most volume in order to be a top 3 trader, right? So keep that in mind, right? That might be your your edge in the competition. And then obviously once the competition ends, you might decide I'm actually going to have modify my strategy just at a higher fee now, right? And then obviously I'm trying to capture that volatility that exists in this trading pair.
Oh yeah. So this also on the speaking about the competition side, since we're trading about volume, therefore means that the more liquidity you provide, the more volume you make. For example, someone who's putting in $100, the other guy who's putting in 1,000 definitely stand a better chance with the guy who's making 100. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So higher liquidity generally means higher volume, but also keep in mind, like let's say you're putting $100, right? And you're putting $100 above 1% above and 1% below the current price of Seiyan for that trading pair. Versus, let's say the other person, he's doing $1,000 and he's doing maybe like 70% above and 70% below. What this could mean is that in the at the price points, right, you might actually have more liquidity concentrated around the current market price than he does, just because he's spreading his liquidity across a wider range.
Yeah,
right?
but would that mean more volume on my side too? No?
Yeah, that could mean more volume for the concentrated liquidity position, but you also run the risk if Seiyan moves up like 2% above,
Exactly.
then you're out of
You're out
range
of
now,
range.
and the other guy is going to be making volume on the liquidity that's available at that price point, which might not be much.
So a quick one.
Right?
Yeah, so a quick one, Glenn. What happens when you're out of range? Do you add more token? Like you, supposing it was between the Seiyan pair, would you now have to end the trade and open up another one? Or is it possible to maybe top up your Seiyan side? Like how do you play around when you're out of
Yeah,
range?
when you're out of range, you're gonna be 100% in one token, right? So if you want to like rebalance your position, you can certainly do so, right? You can withdraw some of those tokens, sell them for the other token in that trading pair that you don't have anymore, and then edit your position to be back in range, and then contribute, the required amounts of tokens for that range that you're selecting, right? So when you're specifying, to be in range, you're gonna contribute both tokens, right? So this is what you can do, right? But also, like, you should keep track of how much you started with, how much you're ending up with, right? Whether you're denominating in US dollar or some other token, just to like figure out what your ROI has been.
Oh yeah, Jen, this is quite surprising. We are almost 1 hour already.
We should have known better than to think that it was going to be 30 minutes. But you know what? It seems like you're really actually grasping this. And Glenn, all of everything that you're going through, to explain concentrated liquidity and how to approach it. Of course, it's not financial advice. So we always, put the disclaimer out there. But in terms of participating in the meme coin, madness trading competition. So I appreciate that. Do we want to continue in any specific direction? Glenn, I want to kind of hand it back over to you, see if there's more that you wanted to go through, or Crypto Hunter, if you have additional questions. I've been keeping an eye on the channels and things. It doesn't seem like we have any questions coming in, but we do have quite a few viewers. So they are, I would think, taking something from this in terms of just DEXs, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much questions on my end. I'm more than happy to answer any questions people might have around Carbon, right? As you're creating these strategies, if you have questions, just come to our Discord or Telegram, right? You can always ask questions there about the trading competition, right? If you have any questions around a buy low, sell high strategy, or recurring strategies, we like to call it, concentrated liquidity strategy, right? But also, Jen, I know we are creating a Dune dashboard, right? Can we provide a sneak peek of that, or is that something that we can't do yet?
Well, I feel like what kind of hater would I be if I said no?
Exactly, you're providing. Let me hear again. I didn't catch that.
It's no, well, okay. So we're working on a leaderboard. It's a Dune dashboard leaderboard, so everybody who's participating in the competition or wants to follow along. It's not for the entire month. It's every week these prizes are being distributed, and every week this volume is being calculated, apart from any previous weeks, right? So everybody, it just starts over. So we want to create a leaderboard. Glenn, you want to bring it up? You're already sharing your screen.
Let me share this so that people can see.
Glenn wants to share it, and I can't blame him.
So this is our leaderboard, right? On Dune, when the competition starts, you have the weeks here, right? You'll start seeing strategies being created, right? The ones that are sort of generating the most volume, right? You'll start seeing them listed here. The owner, right? His ranking, how many strats he has, how much volume he has generated, the total trades that have occurred against these strategies, right?
Expect mine to be somewhere up there.
Absolutely. So you'll be able to see this like leaderboard. So this is like the week one. It's gonna show you all the traders here in this leaderboard, the trading pairs, the strategy ID. You can go click on that strategy ID and then take a look on Carbon, what that strategy is doing, right? So for example, there's a strategy already here for say against Seiyan, right? This has roughly $6,700 worth of tokens. It already has the minimum amount in Seiyan tokens, and it has some amount in Sei, right? This is a buy low, sell high strategy, right? The last time this strategy has traded was on the 29th, October 29th. So it hasn't traded recently, but who knows, right? As the price of Seiyan goes up, it might start selling some of these Seiyan tokens. And then if it goes down again, he might start buying Seiyan again, right? So he might start generating volume. So you'll be able to essentially click on all of these strategies, right? And see what they're doing, right? This is like very transparent. At that point in time, you might decide, okay, this strategy is doing quite well. This trader has chosen really good ranges. Maybe I want to like copy some of that strategy's value and then do something similar for my own, right? So this is how we're going to keep track of the top traders. And this is also what's going to essentially the Seiyan project that they're going to use at the end of every week to award the top 3 traders. Plus, they're also doing NFT airdrops. If I'm not wrong, they're also doing.
Yeah, it's going to be 20 different, say, NFT giveaways, along with additional meme coin airdrops from their own treasury and from the, collaborating projects for Meme Coin Madness. So it's going to be, all participants are eligible for that, whether you're in the top 3, highest volume generating or not. You are eligible as long as you're participating to win one of those NFTs or to get the meme coin airdrop or to win one of the Bancor Carbon DeFi swag packs. And those are going to be special edition, like backpacks and stuff.
Right.
So.
The swag packs, correct me if I'm wrong, you need to be a qualifying trader in this trading competition, and you also have to mint a Galaxy Oats.
Yes, correct. And that will automatically make you eligible for the swag pack. So yes, you'll get an Oats or like a
before I miss it. When's the Galaxy link coming up? From tomorrow or when?
No, so because this is kind of like a retroactive, right? You have to participate for the week and then we'll have 24 hours. So everybody who participated, it's going to be updated once, because even though the competition starts, what is it? Midnight, 12 a.m. UTC Monday, right? They have until just before the week ends to enter the competition, and still they can claim that oat. So I'll make the page available to everyone, but the actual minting itself won't be available until that first week comes to a close. And that's how we'll do it, at the close of every week. And once the competition is over is when you can claim that collectors and be up for the raffle for the 2 additional swag packs.
Okay, so where can people look out for?
So you don't have to worry about the oats yet for probably another week or so. Just know that those swag packs are there. We are going to be raffling them away. And the oat at the end of each week is how you will enter into that raffle.
Yeah, but the issue is, where would we have the access to the Galaxy link? Will it be posted on the
Oh,
Carbon
that'll all be
DeFi?
posted. Yes, I'll post that on the
Exactly.
Bancor Twitter, the Carbon DeFi Twitter. That's going to be in all of our telegrams. I will update the blog and make sure that the information and the links are all there as well, along with
Exactly,
this
because
Steam
the audience
dashboard.
wants
So
it.
anybody who goes into these blogs, into the announcement or the guide, will be able to very easily track all of the, competing, like all of the participants, and how they can really benefit from everything that's being offered to them as a participant.
That's cool.
And I'll
Yeah,
DM you. Make sure you don't
we'll
miss it.
update. Yeah, this Dune dashboard will have more information, I'm sure, as the instructions for claiming the Galaxy Oats are made
Yeah.
available. It will be updated here, and then obviously the 2 guides as well. So yeah, this page is going to be the leaderboard, and then yeah, that should be something that you can track your strategy and see how you're doing against other traders throughout that week.
And remember, just because the competition doesn't start, I mean, it's definitely approaching very quickly, but you don't have to wait until the competition begins to create your strategy. If you already have this sort of trading pair on Carbon DeFi, there's 7 of the different trading pairs that qualify. If you create a position, whether, it's any of the ones that we discussed last time with the recurring orders or this sort of concentrated liquidity position, whatever it happens to be, as long as it's funded, it's a qualifying pair, it's funded with $100 worth of Seiyan, it qualifies for the competition. If you've generated volume prior to, in the next 10 or 11 hours, it's irrelevant. It's going to start at 0 along with the rest of the participating, or like the qualifying positions. So you don't have to wait for it to begin. The sooner you create it, the sooner it's, going to actually start generating that volume, the better your chances, I would think. So you don't
Correct.
have to wait. Yeah.
Yeah, you can already create your strategy, have them ready. They might actually start trading once you create them, right? If you choose good ranges, they might already start trading. And then obviously the volume will only start counting when the first week starts. So this is the start of the first week, right? At 0 UTC on the 25th. And then at that point in time, if you start generating volume when it starts, then your strategy gets counted. As long as you meet the requirements, right? You need $100 worth of Seiyan in order to qualify, and then it has to be created under the trading pairs that were specified in the competition.
Yep.
That's cool. So a good question here, Glenn, to you now. So I want to get on tomorrow, or I want to start the meme token madness, and I want to play around Carbon DeFi. So what exactly should I take? Should I now take what kind of strategy? Must it be the concentrated liquidity strategy, or can I run through any of the ones that are available on Carbon DeFi? And what better chances do I stand depending on the choices I make? Do you get my
Right.
point?
You wanna
Okay,
the
I rephrase.
Mhm.
You want me to rephrase, or do you understand what
No,
I'm trying to ask?
no, I think I understood your question. So the competition is measuring volume. So the strategy that you're choosing should be one that will generate the most volume, right? So concentrated liquidity might make the most sense for a strategy under these trading pairs that are highlighted if the goal for you is to generate volume, right? And obviously, you might want to place that liquidity around the current market price, right, in order to generate volume under these trading pairs and have trading happen. And then just like, keep an eye out on that strategy during the course of the competition, because if you select a tight range, right, you might generate a bunch of volume maybe for 6 hours. But then after the 6 hours, maybe you're out of range because either went up or down in price. So you might have to rebalance at that point in time. These are all things you're going to have to do throughout the trading competition in order to be a top trader.
Absolutely perfect.
And something that I want to point out, I'm going to wind up tweeting it as well. But Crypto Hunter, after our last call, Glenn and I wound up speaking, and we wanted to highlight one of you had a really great question. And it was, does it matter if, Seiyan is the base token or the quote token? If you are, how you arrange your trading pair. Glenn, maybe you can show him what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's buy or sell USDC with Seiyan or buy or sell Seiyan with USDC, right? See how here it's
Right.
Seiyan with USDC. Glenn, maybe you can switch it for me so we can give that visual.
Yeah. So here, this is what Jen is talking about, right? What we care on our end is that you are essentially creating a strategy under the trading pairs that we specify. Whether you're buying or selling Seiyan with USDC or the other way, that does not matter to us. This is strictly what you're deciding to quote the trading pair in, right? So in this case, USDC Seiyan, right? This Seiyan is the quote or base token. If you flip this around, then you're making USDC the base or quote token. But we just care that the trading strategies are created in the trading pairs which we specify, right?
And
another way
that the funding comes in $100 minimum, worth of Seiyan. So this order, you saw Glenn going back and forth. That doesn't matter. I just want to bring clarity to that because I thought it was, we both thought it was a wonderful question that you had last time we were on Crypto Hunter. And I want to thank you for bringing it up, for asking it. And I think it's just as equally important that we highlight it during this call as well for anybody who may not have seen the previous call. We did actually, I went back personally and updated the competition and the guide to say that it doesn't matter in which order, this is created, as long as it's a qualifying trading pair and the, Seiyan side is funded with that $100, USDC worth. So I just wanted to point that out. And I wanted to thank you for asking such a great question and make sure that anybody who didn't catch it is now aware of that.
That's perfect. That's cool.
So thank you.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We don't, like I said, we don't care about what you're quoting in, right? This is up to you, right? As long as the strategies are in that trading pair, then you're good, right?
Yep.
That's all.
Awesome. Okay, well, everybody, you see it on the screen. say.carbondefi.xyz/trade is where you can go to start experimenting, start playing and creating your position. I say experimenting and playing. That's probably most likely going to be the simulator where Glenn was working on before. That would just be, you could see it up on a screen. You go to the trade page, you see simulate. This is where you can back test. You can really kind of play with some different strategies. Any questions? Always reach out to us. We always say our DMs are open, and they really are, whether it's on X or it's on Telegram, we're available. Join the Carbon DeFi Telegram. It's Carbon DeFi XYZ. And good luck tomorrow. I've shared all of the links in the comments. I believe I've shared them on X as well. So I hope to see the strategies coming in. I would love to see that volume going, and I want to start seeing that leaderboard playing a little bit, and we'll be keeping everybody updated on everything that happens throughout the competition. Crypto Hunter, do you have any more questions for us before we kind of call it at the hour?
I think I should be fine at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know how to reach us because this was, what brought us up here in the first place. So again, I appreciate you. Glenn, thank you so much for jumping up here. And thank you to everybody who tuned in to the call. Good luck tomorrow and over the next 4 weeks. And I'm excited to see what happens.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good luck, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Okay. We'll see ya.